Show on the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
We are just 3 days away from the NFL Draft, and our next guest will be co-hosting our SportsMap Radio NFL Draft Show. Coming up on Thursday, we'll be on the air from 8 p.m. Eastern all the way until midnight Eastern. He is Cole Thompson, who covers the NFL for Sports Illustrated and for Fansided, and he joins us now on our progressive guest line. Cole, good morning and happy NFL Draft Week to you, my friend.
I can finally start sleeping again after Friday night. So there we go. Let's get this show going. Congratulations to the next guys who are about ready to join the NFL. And let's talk to you about the NFL Draft coming up on Thursday, April 29th.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. So let's kind of just start big picture here with the draft this week. You grade these guys out every year. You have your Thompson 100. You're breaking it down. You're watching tape. Compared to a typical draft that you've evaluated before, how many first-round grades have you given out this year?
You know, there's always that kind of limitation, and mine is always somewhere on the shorter side. I usually go anywhere between about 21 to 23. This year, I have 26. I think that there's 26 players who have shown either with upside, potential, or what are the intangibles that they have, scheme fit, all that can definitely find their way into the first round, and I would have no problem putting them in there. The crazier part is how many people I have as second-round picks. I have over 45 players with second-round grades, and that just means that the amount of talent and how little of a drop-off there is at certain positions, wide receiver, linebacker, offensive tackle. It's so well tight that you could make an argument that even though if you quote-unquote overdraft a guy, you probably only overdrafted him by a pick or two. That's how deep and talented this mid-round class is. But for the first round, I have 26 guys in my top 10, which we'll reveal later on. It's 3 quarterbacks, it's 3 wide receivers, it's a tight end, it's a linebacker, and it's two cornerbacks. So all the offensive tackles are not there. All of the the quote unquote superstars of quarterbacks, one of them and exactly where he ranks, but all of them are a little bit on the outside. But I still think that there's 26 names who are absolutely deserving of being considered first round picks.
Cole, the report came out last night from Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network that the Niners at number 3 are down to either Mac Jones or Trey Lance. You have Trey Lance as your second-rated quarterback, so I'm guessing you'd like to see Lance be the pick there. What's your takeaway on the fact that Fields seems to be out of the mix and it's down to Mac Jones and Trey Lance?
This, to me, was always it. And I remember I came on the show about 2.5 weeks ago, and I said, listen, if you're trying to find that medium guy, that guy who is more of the mobility guy that John Lynch is looking for, but someone who has, the pocket passing awareness, the completion rating, Trey Lance is the best of both worlds. And the biggest thing of all is you got to remember that if you're not moving off Jimmy Garoppolo, you have a 22-year-old in Mac Jones who I think has right now the second most NFL-ready intangibles to go to be a starter this upcoming season. So when you look at it that way, Trey Lance is a project, and my player comp for him is Josh Allen. And I know that that's crazy. And everyone's like, how is it Josh Allen? Well, look at Josh Allen when he came out of Wyoming back in 2018. He was erratic. He had the arm strength. He had the overall vision, but he didn't have those small minor mechanics that make a quarterback from good to great. In year 2, he started developing the great. In year 3, he started to develop into all-pro level quarterback. And now we're talking about him being one of the biggest steals. How could people be sleeping on him? It's the exact same thing with Trey Lance. This is a guy who has 17 career starts, but his decision-making is top-notch. He has a fantastic arm. He has mobility. He is elusive in the pocket. His awareness is great. His athleticism is great. But the biggest problem is it's those minor mechanics. One of the biggest things, I was talking about this on Mike Meltzer's show yesterday, he has one speed. He's going to give you a 5-yard out route coming in at 75 miles an hour. He's going to give you a 30-yard fly pattern at 75 miles an hour. It's all about learning in the right system. And with Jimmy Garoppolo, more of your pocket passing guy who has that touch, who has that, who has that ability. Lance is someone who I think needs to learn from that type of guy. Very similar to what we saw with Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith in Kansas City. Let him sit for a year. Let him find it out. And I promise you, if you're looking to elevate this offense, I think it can work with Mac Jones. I know if you give him a year, it can work 100% with Trey Lance. And that's why Trey Lance is my QB2.
Why is Mac Jones being considered and Justin Fields is not?
I honestly think it's scheme fit. If you look at the history of quarterbacks that Kyle Shanahan has worked for, and we can go all the way back to 2009 when he was working for the Houston Texans, they all have that same kind of build, that same kind of mentality. None of these guys are deep ball passers, but they work, and they work at throwing the ball consistently. And that's exactly what Mac Jones did during his time at Alabama. Now, again, let's get this out of the way. It helps to have 2 top 15 picks as your wide receivers, a top, in my opinion, a top 25 pick as your running back, and an offensive line that doesn't quit, including at least, I would say, 1 or 2 players who will hear their name called some point during the first round on Thursday night. He had the right system working around him. But again, what Kyle Shanahan's system is exactly what a quarterback like Mac Jones needs. I think the biggest problem here is that when you look at the upside with Mac Jones, we're talking about a Kirk Cousins. I believe my player comp for Justin Fields is 100% correct. Not at all. But I do believe that if this is the upside and the best we can get from Justin Fields, we're talking about a Dak Prescott, a guy who can move, a guy who can play really well inside the pocket, be a all-multitude thrower, throwing, for 5,000 yards a season, being able to connect in the end zone 40 times. But again, you now know, what are we looking for in a system like Kyle Shanahan? One that likes to run the ball, one that would rather be consistent on third down, not really moving the ball deep down the field. Mac Jones is that guy. Mac Jones is comp. A lot of people have it this way. I do too. It's Kirk Cousins. Give him a run game. You give him some weapons. He is going to work. And he's shown he can work. The problem is that there is a ceiling. The ceiling is you have to build around him. We don't know if you have to build around Justin Fields. But Justin Fields is QB3 for me. So guess what? I'm okay with, if you're going to reach, you're going to reach for Trey Lance, my QB2, versus reaching for my QB3.
The fact that you have Zach Wilson for is very, very concerning. Very concerning.
It's not. I promise you, it's not. And the reason is because I think Zach Wilson has the chance to start. But I think Zach Wilson, and again, I look at his overall skill set, I think he is a talented player. But you have to consider everything that went into the season. It's not BYU's fault that FBS teams, and then when you look at the original schedule that BYU was supposed to play this year, it was phenomenal. They would have been a team that was a must-watch if Zach Wilson was playing the way he was. But teams canceled because of COVID-19. So I do have to put into consideration, are those stats engulfed and inflamed because of he played against weaker talent? It's very similar to Mac Jones, but I do think no matter what, Zach Wilson has 1 more upside, 2, a better arm, and 3, I would actually say, better vision in the pocket awareness than Mac Jones, who played in the SEC. His excuse was, I had a great offensive line and I had a ton of great receivers. I'm not going to say that this is not going to work when the New York Jets select Zach Wilson at number 2. What I am going to say is that I do think everyone putting him this high, there is a grain of salt and an asterisk next to it. It's very similar to Caleb Farley. Caleb Farley did not get a first-round grade for me, but it's because of medical. You got to understand that the reason Zach Wilson is QB4 on my list is not because I don't think Zach Wilson is a good player. I just think that when you look at the intangibles and the upside of the 2 other quarterbacks ahead of him, there's a little bit more I like. And more importantly, there's a little bit more that I've seen from them that I don't know if I will see that exact same thing transition over to the NFL for Wilson.
Cole Thompson with us here. You can find him on Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson. He's joining us on our progressive guest line. Let's stay with the Jets. I find them to be fascinating in this draft, Cole. They have 10 picks this year. They have 11 picks next year. They're picking 23rd in round 1 and 34th overall at the beginning of round 2. So they're in position to make a bold trade in this draft. If they stay at 23, who are some guys you think could be there for the Jets with that 23rd pick?
I think this is a really interesting one because they can go a multitude of ways. I think the first name that is like really out there, and you know how high I am on him. You have Thompson's top talent. You have the list in front of you. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the athletic linebacker, can play that Fred Warner role that we saw in Robert Saleh's defense. He's a guy who can just fly sideline to sideline, be this hybrid guy, play really well in coverage, do a little bit of everything. His range is probably anywhere between 19 to 26. I think that he'd be a really fun, interesting fit. I think if you want to go the defensive back route, you have two options. And if this guy's here, I immediately run to the podium as fast as possible. And that's Greg Newsom from Northwestern. Every single snap I've watched of Greg Newsom, I've had to put with a grain of salt knowing, okay, there's some medical history here, but wow, why are we not talking about him in that same category as the J.C. Horn and the Caleb Farley and the Patrick Surtain? He is right there meeting with Big Ten receivers. He allowed less than 12 receptions this year in coverage. That's how talented he was. The other guy, Caleb Farley. We know the upside of Caleb Farley. This was a guy who understands what goes through a quarterback's progression because he played quarterback all throughout high school and at the start of his Virginia Tech career. The problem is there's limited film on him, and he also opted out at the start of the season, but he also had back issues going into his pro day. So he had to do a private pro day workout after Virginia Tech had their pro day. If they want to go offensive lineman, I think a guy like Kevin Jenkins, who can kind of play him a little bit of everywhere, maybe inside at guard, maybe outside at right tackle to pair up Mekhi Becton. I think there's a multitude of pictures you can go there. And at number 34, and this is the one that people are always like, well, why are we going to do it this way? I think you target Travis Etienne out of Clemson. I think you need a true running back to pair with Zach Wilson in your regime. Here's the biggest thing. He's not just a running back. We talk about how Najee Harris was able to do all these incredible things for Alabama, especially in the passing game. Well, at the same time, Etienne was doing the exact same thing in the ACC against weaker opponents. But he's good as a pass catcher. He's got great vision. He actually has some home run speed. He is a little bit lankier than what I would like for a running back. But overall, if you're running this system, a guy like Robert Saleh, Kyle Shanahan, what we saw in San Francisco, they love their run game. Go ahead and get yourself a running back, pick number 34. If he is there, Travis Etienne should be a member of the Gang Green, and this offensive class, this rookie class, should be ready to take flight in week one.
Cole, I got a minute left. I think they could even trade back into the first round to try and target Etienne if he's available, or if Najee Harris slips and they're in range. I mean, you have 21 picks over the next 2 years. Go help Zach Wilson right away and get him a big-time playmaker. I totally agree. We've seen it before, right? The Giants just did it a couple of years ago, and all it cost them was a fourth-round pick to move back to number 30 to take DeAndre Baker. Could you see the Jets using the 34th pick and another later-round pick either this year or next year to get back into round one?
Yeah, I could, but here would be the thing. If you're using 34, you have to be willing to move up into that top 25 range. So you got to be picking at 23, and I think you got to be picking somewhere at like 26 or 27. That would be my biggest thing. If not, I would offer a fourth-round pick, maybe 2 fourth-round picks, maybe even a third-round pick, maybe the third-round pick to move up. But I'm not going to give up 34 to jump up to 32 unless I'm giving up like 34 and a 6th-round pick to move back just literally 2 spots with like a team like the Green Bay Packers or a team like now the Baltimore Ravens, who made a fabulous trade this past weekend, in my personal opinion, to be able to get all this draft collateral for Orlando Brown Jr., especially a guy who they know they weren't going to re-sign. They added a first-round pick and a third-round pick. They're going to be set up really well. I think the Jets have a lot of options. If their guy is there somewhere in that later round, go ahead and pair something, maybe a third and a fourth, to go get your guy and finish with 3 first-round picks on night one.
He's Cole Thompson. He'll be co-hosting our Sports Map Radio draft special, our draft program, Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be live for the entire first round. Cole, looking forward to it, man. I'll talk to you later this week.
I'll see you soon, bud.
Cole Thompson with us there on our Progressive guest line. Of course, Progressive, if you're a Progressive driver, you save over $750 on average. Quick break. We wrap up our show for a Monday. Jake Asman with you. This is the Jake Asman Show on Sports Map Radio.
Let's go. Pushing the